friends. Today we're going to be designers. We read the story Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen, and we saw how the boat went down when too many animals climbed in. That made us start thinking about floating and sinking. Designers solve problems and they use something called the design cycle. The design cycle helps us ask questions, think of ideas, make things, and test them to see how well they work. If you would like to read this story before we continue, click on the link attached. Step 1 is ask. Designers always begin by asking good questions. Let's look at a marble closely. Is it heavy or light? Is it hard or soft? What happens, do you think, when we put a marble in water? Yeah, it sinks, just like the boat in the story. Do you think the marble will act like the animals? So our problem today is how can we make a marble float? Step 2 is think. This is where we use what we already know and start imagining new ideas. What do you know about things that float? Can you think of something else that floats? You can pause the video here where you write down some ideas. Great thinking! If those things float, why do you think a marble sinks? Awesome work! Now you are thinking like designers. We also need to think about what you want your design to do. I decided I wanted my design to make a marble float for 5 minutes. This is the part where we use our imagination to brainstorm some ideas. What could help make the marble float? What shapes might work? Could we make a tiny boat? A raft? Something flat? A bowl shape? What size does it need to be? Remember, all ideas are good ideas when we are designing and problem solving. Now that we have our ideas, it's time to think about what we can use to build our design. When we plan, we choose recycled materials wherever we can. It saves resources and helps Earth. What materials can we use to build our design? How can we reuse or recycle what we already have? Some of the best designs are made from recycled objects, which is better for the environment. We need to think carefully before building. It is also a good time to think about if you are going to need any tools to build your designs, such as scissors, glue, or sticky tape. Step 3 is create. This is where we turn our ideas into a picture so we can see what we want to make. Designers always draw their ideas before they start building. It helps them plan, imagine, and make changes. Drawing helps us notice things we didn't think about before. We can start to see any obstacles or problems we might face. In my example, I thought making a paper boat was a great idea, but when I started drawing it, I realized I didn't know how to fold a paper boat, so I needed to look up some instructions to help understand the steps. When we draw, we show what our design will look like. We can spot problems early, think about what may be tricky, and we can make changes before we start building. Remember, drawings do not have to be perfect. They just need to show your idea. Pause the video here while you draw your design. Now that we've drawn our idea, it's time to start building the design. This is where we turn our drawing into something real using the materials we planned. Using your hands carefully, take your time, follow your plan, and try your best. Make changes if something doesn't work, and keep going even if it gets tricky. Here you can see a photo of the paper boat I made. It took me a couple tries, but I got there in the end. Designers often need to try, test, and try again. That's how we learn what works. Pause the video here while you build your design. Now for the fun part. Step 4 is testing our design. This is where we find out if our idea does what we hoped it would do. When we test our designs, we may notice some things that worked really well and other things that didn't go as planned. That's all part of being a designer. As we test, we try our design the way we planned, watch carefully to see what happens, notice any problems or surprises, and think about what we might change next time. Here you can see I put my paper boat in a container of water and then put the marble in the boat. This is where we think about what we wanted the design to do. In my case, I wanted the boat to float for 5 minutes. So did it do what it was supposed to do? At first, the paper boat made the marble float according to plan. But after a little while, the paper started to get soggy and the boat began to sink. When we test our designs, we watch carefully, notice changes, pay attention to what the design does, and look for anything unexpected. My boat did make the marble float at the start, but did it float for the whole 5 minutes? No. After only 2 minutes, it sank. The paper got wet and down it went. And that's okay. Testing helps us see what actually happens when we try out our ideas. And finally, step 5, reflect. Reflection helps our brains learn and grow stronger. It's more than just asking, did it work or not? When we reflect, we stop and think about what our design did well, what was challenging, what we might improve or change next time. We can also think about, was it safe? Did we use recycle or natural materials where we could? Did our design do what we planned? What surprised us? And what would we try differently next time? Reflection helps us notice new ideas, understand our thinking better, and make a plan for our next try. That's how designers get better and better. When designers pause and think about their work, their brain says, oh, now I know what to try next. So let's see if we can remember the 5 steps of the design cycle. Step 1 is ask. We begin by asking questions. What is the problem? What do we need our design to do? Step 2 is think. We imagine ideas, make predictions, and think about what might work. Step 3 is create. We draw our idea and then build it using the materials we planned. Step 4 is test. We try out our design and see what happens. We watch carefully and notice anything unexpected. Step 5 is reflect. We stop and think about what worked, what was tricky, and what we might change next time. Reflection helps our brain learn and grow stronger. We've now travelled through all 5 steps of the design cycle. We've asked, imagined, created, tested, and reflected, just like the real designers do. Designing isn't about getting it perfect the first time. It's about trying new ideas, learning from what happens, and giving things another go. Every time we move through the design cycle, our brains get stronger, our ideas get clearer, and our designs get better. Here's the exciting part. You can use the design cycle to solve all kinds of problems around you. At school, home, the playground, the community. Anytime you wonder, how could I make this better? The design cycle is ready to help you. So now it's your turn to try, test, and improve. So what will you design?